He was about to enter a meeting with the CEO when the secretary silenced him, and Miss Tyler Bennett was sweating cold as he held the folder with the quarterly reports that would finally prove his worth to the company. After 6 months as a junior executive at Metropolitan Construction Group, this was his chance to impress the CEO and secure the promotion he had always dreamed of. That was when he felt a firm hand grab his arm and yank him sharply to the side. Before he could react, the CEO's secretary, Heather Miller, covered his mouth with her hand and dragged him into an empty room. "Tyler, for heaven's sake, don't go into that meeting," she whispered, her eyes shining with desperation. He pushed her hand away, confused and annoyed. "Heather, have you lost your mind? I'm late for the most important presentation of my career. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you." She held his shoulders firmly. "What you have in that folder isn't what you think it is. Someone switched your reports." Tyler felt the world spin. Heather had always been the most serious and reliable professional he knew. In 2 years working there, he had never seen her lose her composure. "What are you talking about?" He opened the folder with trembling hands. The documents were there, apparently the same. But when Heather pointed to some numbers, Tyler noticed subtle changes. Values he was sure he had typed appeared modified. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice coming out weaker than he intended. "Julian Vance," she whispered the name of the financial director. "He's using you, Tyler. These fake numbers are going to make the company look like it's doing poorly. The CEO will panic and accept a buyout offer that's been in the works for months. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit the like button, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us starting out." Now continuing. Tyler leaned against the wall, feeling his legs weaken. Julian had been his mentor since his first day at the company. He was the one who trained him, who encouraged him, who promised he had a future there. But why would Julian do this to me? He hired me, taught me everything. That's exactly why. Heather closed the office door carefully. He needed someone clean with no history at the company to be the bearer of bad news, someone the CEO would trust. Tyler's mind raced, trying to process everything. He remembered small details that hadn't made sense at the time. Julian always asked him to work late, alone, always offered help with important reports, always praised his work too much. "How long have you known about this?" he asked. Heather lowered her eyes as if carrying a huge weight on her shoulders. 3 weeks. I've been trying to talk to Mr. Arthur, but Julian always shows up at the right moment and makes up an excuse to send me away." Arthur Harrison was the CEO of the company, a 68-year-old man who had built the construction group from scratch. To Tyler, he was like a grandfather everyone would want to have. Kind, respectful, always willing to listen to employees. "Heather, we need to tell him everything now." "It's not that simple," she shook her head. "Julian has information about people in here, things that can ruin careers, families. He uses it to keep everyone silent." Tyler felt a chill down his spine. "What kind of information?" "Stephen from accounting has a gambling problem. Julian paid his debts in exchange for silence. Monica from HR had an affair with a married client. Mr. Arthur's chauffeur has a son who needs expensive treatment, and Julian pays the medical bills." Each revelation was like a punch to Tyler's stomach. The company he thought he knew was a web of secrets and blackmail. "And you?" he asked, fearing the answer. "What does he have on you?" Heather was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with pain. "Julian is my ex-husband." Tyler felt as if the ground had vanished from beneath his feet. Everything was starting to make sense in a terrible way. "We split up 3 years ago," Heather continued. "I found out he was embezzling money from the company he worked for before. When I tried to report him, he threatened me. He said he would tell everyone about my past." "What past?" "I was married at 16 to a violent man. I ran away from home pregnant and had to lie about my age and experience to get work. I spent years building a new identity, studying at night, striving to be respected. Julian found out everything and blackmailed me throughout our marriage." Tyler looked at that 42-year-old woman he had always admired for her strength and determination, and saw a person who had fought against unimaginable odds. "Why did you agree to work here knowing he was in the company?" "Because I finally have proof that he did this in other places. and because my daughter Anna Grace is in university. If I lose this job, she won't be able to finish her degree." The office door suddenly opened, and Julian Vance appeared, with his usual confident smile. "Tyler, my boy, what are you doing here? The CEO is waiting." Heather's entire body stiffened. Tyler felt sweat trickling down his back. "Julian, I was just reviewing the numbers one last time." Very good, very good. Always responsible." Julian patted him on the shoulder. "But come on, we can't keep the man waiting." Heather looked directly at Tyler, her eyes pleading for him not to go, but Julian was already ushering him out of the room. "Heather, could you make us some coffee?" Julian said in a tone that left no room for refusal. She nodded, but Tyler saw her hands trembling. Walking down the hallway toward the CEO's office, Tyler felt as if he were being led to his own doom. Julian chatted animatedly about the bright future awaiting him at the company, but it all sounded like a cruel mockery. "Julian," Tyler stopped in the middle of the hallway. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course, my young friend." "Why did you choose me for this company?" Julian smiled, but Tyler noticed something different in his eyes. "Because you have a special talent, Tyler. You're honest, dedicated, and people trust you instantly. Those are rare qualities in the business world." The words sounded like a veiled confession. Tyler realized Julian was confirming exactly what Heather had said. They reached the door of the CEO's office. Through the glass, Tyler saw Mr. Arthur on the phone, looking worried. "Julian, I need to use the restroom before the meeting." "Sure, but be quick. We don't want to make a bad first impression." Tyler rushed to the restroom and called Heather. "Heather, I need the evidence you have now." "Tyler, it's too dangerous. If Julian finds out, he already suspects. I saw it in his eyes. If I walk into that room with false reports, it will be the end of my career, and maybe Mr. Arthur's too." There was a pause. Then Heather whispered, "The filing room, 3rd floor. Behind the 2018 files, there's a blue box. The password is Anna1578, my daughter's name and the year she was born." Tyler hung up and looked at the mirror. The man reflected back no longer looked like the confident young man who had arrived at that company 6 months ago. But maybe that was exactly what he needed to be now, someone who didn't blindly trust everyone. He went back to Julian, who was waiting impatiently. "Sorry, I was nervous. It's natural, my boy. But trust me, everything will work out." While Julian was knocking on the CEO's door, Tyler made a decision that would change his life forever. "Mr. Arthur," Tyler entered the room before Julian could speak. "I need to talk to you. Alone." The CEO looked surprised. Julian tried to interfere. "Tyler, that's not protocol. We agreed to—" "Julian, please." Tyler looked directly into the eyes of the man who had been his mentor and now knew was his persecutor. "Just 5 minutes. Then you can come in, and the 3 of us will talk." Arthur Harrison nodded and Julian left, but not before giving Tyler a warning look. "Mr. Arthur, what I'm about to say may sound crazy, but I need you to trust me for a few minutes." The CEO settled into his armchair and gestured for Tyler to continue. "The reports I brought are tampered with. Julian swapped numbers to make our situation look worse than it really is." Arthur Harrison remained silent for a long moment. "Tyler, that's a very serious accusation. Julian has worked with me for 5 years. You've been here 6 months." "I know, sir, and that's exactly why he chose me. Heather has proof that he did this in other companies. She has documents saved." "Heather?" The CEO seemed genuinely surprised. "Why didn't she come talk to me?" Tyler realized he couldn't reveal the relationship between Heather and Julian without her permission. He needed another way. "Mr. Arthur, can you give me 10 minutes to get that proof? If I'm lying, you can fire me on the spot and never have to see me again." The CEO studied Tyler's face for what felt like an eternity. "You're risking everything, kid. Your career, your reputation. Why would you do that if you weren't sure?" "Because you deserve the truth, and because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than protecting your own career." Arthur nodded slowly. "You have 15 minutes, but Julian can't know you left this room." Tyler went out the back door of the CEO's office and ran to the 3rd floor. His hands trembled as he typed the password into the blue box. Inside, he found dozens of documents showing a clear pattern. Julian had pulled the same scheme at 3 previous companies. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. When Tyler returned to the CEO's office, he held in his hands proof that his life had been manipulated from day one. Arthur examined the documents with growing attention. "My God," the CEO murmured. "How could I have been so blind?" "Mr. Arthur, there's one more thing. Julian is blackmailing company employees. He has personal information on several people and uses it to keep them silent." Arthur's face hardened. "Call Heather in here. Now." When Heather entered the room, Tyler saw she had been crying. Her eyes were red, but she maintained a professional posture. "Heather," the CEO said in a gentle voice, "Tyler told me about the documents you saved. I need to know everything." Heather looked at Tyler, who nodded encouragingly. "Mr. Arthur, there's something I need to tell you about my relationship with Julian, but I'm afraid of the consequences. Heather, you've worked with me for 2 years. I've never seen anyone more dedicated and honest in this company. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." It was then that Heather told the whole story. Her past, the abusive marriage, the escape, the struggle to rebuild her life, the relationship with Julian, the discovery of the fraud, the blackmail. Arthur listened in silence. When she finished, he stood up and walked to the window. "Heather, you have a daughter in college, don't you?" "Yes, sir. Anna Grace is in her 4th semester of law." "And you're afraid that if all this becomes public, she'll be harmed?" "It's my greatest fear, sir. She knows nothing about my past. I wanted her to grow up without carrying these ghosts." The CEO turned to her. "Heather, you turned adversity into strength. You built a respectable career, raised an exemplary daughter, and now you're risking everything to protect this company and your co-workers. I feel honored to have you as an employee." Tyler saw tears streaming down Heather's face. "Now," Mr. Arthur continued, "let's resolve this situation. Tyler, I want you to go into the meeting with the false reports, but this time I'll be prepared." An hour later, Tyler was back in the CEO's office, but now he knew exactly what was happening. Julian had invited 2 investors, Derek Sterling and Cynthia Thorne, who were apparently interested in buying the company. "As you can see," Julian presented the false reports, "the company is going through difficulties. The numbers show a significant drop in profitability." Tyler observed the investors' expressions. They seemed satisfied with the bad news. "Mr. Arthur," Derek Sterling said, "considering these numbers, I believe our purchase offer is more than fair." That's when the CEO stood up. "Interesting," Mr. Arthur said with a smile Tyler had never seen before, "because I have here other reports showing exactly the opposite." Julian's face lost all color. "Mr. Arthur, I don't understand." "Julian, these are the real reports." Mr. Arthur placed a stack of documents on the table. "And these other papers show that you pulled the same scheme on at least 3 previous companies." The silence in the room was deafening. The investors glanced nervously at each other. "You two," Mr. Arthur looked at Derek and Cynthia. "Did you know the numbers were being tampered with?" "We didn't know anything." Derek stood up quickly. "If we had known there were irregularities—" "Of course not." Julian tried to defend himself. "This is a misunderstanding. Tyler must have mixed up the numbers." "Tyler didn't mix up anything." Mr. Arthur's voice was firm. "He uncovered your fraud and had the courage to tell me everything." Julian looked at Tyler with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you just did, kid. You ruined your own career. Who would want to hire someone who betrays their own mentor?" "Julian," Mr. Arthur interrupted, "the only traitor in this room is you. You betrayed my trust. You betrayed this company. You betrayed every employee who depends on their jobs." The investors were already heading for the door when Julian made one last desperate attempt. "Mr. Arthur, you can't do this to me. I know things about this company, about employees. If you fire me, I'll tell everyone everything." The CEO smiled again. "You mean the information you used to blackmail our co-workers?" "I already spoke with all of them this morning. Stephen from accounting is going into a support program for gambling addiction, which the company will cover. Monica from HR is being transferred to our branch in Chicago, where she can start over. The driver is being promoted to garage supervisor with a salary increase to cover his son's medical expenses. Julian was completely defeated. How did I find out about the blackmail?" Heather told me. "The same Heather you tried to intimidate and control. The bravest woman I know." At that moment, the door opened and Heather walked in, followed by 2 company security guards. "Julian Vance," she said with a steady voice, "on behalf of every employee of this company that you manipulated and intimidated, I ask you to leave immediately and never come back." Julian looked around the room, seeing there was nothing left he could do. As he passed Tyler, he stopped and whispered, "You're going to regret this for the rest of your life." Tyler looked him in the eyes and replied, "The only thing I'd regret is not having the courage to do the right thing." After Julian was escorted out by the security guards, Arthur sat down in his armchair and took a deep breath. "Tyler, Heather, come here. We need to talk." The 2 approached, still processing everything that had happened. "Tyler," the CEO began, "do you have any idea what this company is worth right now?" Tyler shook his head. $23 million, and Julian almost convinced me to sell it for $8 million. The weight of those words hit Tyler like a thunderbolt. "Mr. Arthur, You saved this company, son. You saved the jobs of 42 families, and more important than that, you taught me that experience without character is worthless, but character without experience can move mountains." Tyler felt his eyes fill with tears. "Heather," Arthur continued, "I want to offer you the position of administrative director, with a 60% salary increase and profit sharing in the company." Heather covered her face with her hands and began to cry. "Mr. Arthur, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything. You've proven you deserve far more than I can offer." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, be sure to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now, continuing. 2 weeks later, Tyler was in his new office. Arthur had promoted him to project coordinator and given him the responsibility of implementing new transparency protocols in the company. Heather knocked on the door and came in with a cup of coffee and a smile he had never seen before. "How are you adjusting to the new position?" she asked. "I'm still processing everything." Tyler accepted the coffee. "Sometimes it feels like a dream." "Or a nightmare." Heather sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Tyler, I can never thank you enough for what you did." "Heather, you're the one who saved the company. I just handed over the information." "No," she shook her head. "You chose to trust me when you had every reason to be suspicious. You risked your career for people you barely knew. That's not common." Tyler looked out the office window. Down below he could see the construction workers arriving for another day's work. Entire families depended on that company. "Heather, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How did you find the strength to face Julian after everything he did to you?" Heather was silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "You know, Tyler, for a long time I believed my past was a shame I had to carry forever. Julian made me believe that. But when I saw he was trying to destroy a company full of good people, I realized my experience with manipulative men could be useful for protecting others." "And your daughter, does she know everything now?" "Anna Grace came to visit me last week." Heather's eyes lit up. "I told her the whole story. You know what the first thing she said was?" Tyler waited. She said, "Mom, now I understand where your strength comes from." And she gave me a hug that lasted 10 minutes. Tyler smiled. "She must be very proud of you." "We're proud of each other." Heather stood up. "Tyler, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "Arthur is thinking about retiring in 2 years. He wants to prepare someone to take over the company." Tyler felt his heart race. "Do you think he's considering?" "I think you've already proven you have the integrity needed to lead. Now, he just needs to gain the experience." That afternoon, Tyler had a meeting with all the company's employees. It was the first time he had spoken to such a large group since he had arrived there. "Everyone," he began, "I know the last few weeks have been hard on all of us. Discovering that someone we trusted was betraying us is not easy to accept." He saw heads nodding in the audience. "But if this situation taught us anything, it's that a company is only as strong as the trust between the people who work in it." Stephen from accounting raised his hand. "Tyler, I want to thank you. I want to thank. I know you could have exposed me when you found out about my gambling problems, but you and Mr. Arthur chose to help me instead of judging me. Stephen, Tyler replied, we all have personal battles. What matters is how we face those battles and whether we're willing to accept help when we need it. Monica from HR also spoke up. I wanted to say that accepting the transfer to Chicago was the best decision of my life. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what we need. Tyler looked to the back of the room and saw Arthur Harrison leaning against the wall, watching everything with a proud smile. Everyone, Tyler continued, starting today, we're going to implement weekly meetings where anyone can raise concerns or suggestions. We'll create an anonymous whistleblower channel, and we'll have total transparency about our financial situation. After the meeting ended, Tyler went to find Heather in her new office. He found her organizing piles of documents. How was your first week as administrative director? Intense, she laughed. I'm discovering that Julian left a lot of loose ends, but nothing we can't handle. Heather, can I tell you a secret? Sure. Before all this happened, I was thinking about leaving the company. Heather stopped what she was doing and looked at him. Really? Why? I felt lost. I didn't know if I was on the right path, if I had real talent, or if I was just following the expectations others had of me. And now? Now I know that sometimes the right path isn't the easiest, but it's the one that lets us sleep peacefully at night. Heather smiled. Tyler, can I tell you a secret too? Go ahead. The night before I decided to tell you about Julian, I thought about running away, taking Anna Grace and disappearing far away from here. What made you change your mind? I realized that if I ran away one more time, I'd be teaching my daughter that when things get tough, the solution is to give up everything. And she deserves to learn that sometimes it's worth staying and fighting. Tyler spent the following months learning all aspects of the business. Arthur took him to meetings with clients, taught him about cash flow, introduced him to key suppliers. In one of those meetings, Tyler met Martha Miller, a 55-year-old architect who was designing a housing complex for the company. Tyler, Martha said after the presentation, I need to congratulate you on how you handled the situation with your former finance director. You heard about what happened? My son works here as an engineer. He told me the whole story. He said he's never seen employees so united and motivated. Tyler looked around the office and saw that Martha was right. Since Julian's departure, the atmosphere in the company had completely changed. People smiled more, collaborated more, seemed genuinely happy to be there. Martha, Arthur said, we want to propose a long-term partnership with your firm. We're planning to expand our housing projects. Mr. Arthur, it would be an honor to work with a company that prioritizes integrity. After Martha left, Arthur turned to Tyler. Did you see how she talked about us? I did, sir. You know why our reputation has improved so much over the last few months? Tyler thought for a moment. Because people know they can trust us? Exactly. And do you know how much trust is worth in the business world? A lot. It's worth more than any contract, more than any guarantee. A company that people trust doesn't have to compete on price alone. It can charge for the value it delivers. That night, Tyler was having dinner with his sister Chloe when she made an observation that surprised him. Tyler, you seem different. Different how? More confident. Before you always seemed like you were trying to prove something to someone. Now you seem comfortable with who you are. Tyler thought about his sister's words. It was true. Ever since he had faced Julian and discovered he could trust his own judgment, he felt more confident in his decisions. Chloe, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I changed because I grew professionally, or did I grow professionally because I changed? Chloe smiled. I think both happened at the same time. Sometimes we need a difficult situation to find out what we're capable of. The next day, Tyler received an unexpected call. It was Julian Vance. Tyler, I need to talk to you. Julian, I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please, just 5 minutes. It's important. Against his better judgment, Tyler agreed to meet him at a cafe near the company. When he got there, he was shocked by Julian's appearance. The man who had always been impeccably dressed was now disheveled, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and trembling hands. "Tyler, I wanted to apologize." Tyler hadn't expected that. Apologize? I destroyed my own life trying to destroy others. I lost my apartment, my car, my reputation. No one wants to hire me. Tyler felt a pang of pity, but he remembered all the employees Julian had blackmailed. "Julian, you always had choices. You could have built a career based on competence instead of manipulation." "I know," Julian lowered his head, "but I wanted to tell you that you did the right thing. Even though I was angry at the time, now I understand that you saved more than a company. You saved people. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that it wasn't luck. You had courage when I bet you wouldn't, and that made all the difference." When Tyler returned to the office, he found Heather waiting for him with exciting news. "Tyler, I just received a proposal from a group of investors from New York. They want to form a partnership with us for projects in other cities." "And Arthur, what does he think?" "He wants you to review the proposal and give your opinion." Tyler leafed through the documents. It was an incredible growth opportunity, but it also represented significant risks. "Heather, do you know these investors?" "I did a basic search. They seem serious. But after what we went through with Julian, I think we should be more cautious with partnerships." Tyler nodded. "Let's do a full investigation. References from other companies, financial history, everything. We're not going to make the same mistake twice." 2 weeks later, Tyler presented his analysis to Arthur. He had found some concerning inconsistencies in the investor's history. "Mr. Arthur, I do not recommend this partnership. There are signs that they made similar proposals to other companies and then tried to take over in a hostile manner." Arthur studied the detailed report Tyler had prepared. "Tyler, 6 months ago you would have accepted any opportunity without question, just because it looked good on paper." "True, sir." "What changed?" Tyler thought about the question. "I learned that sometimes the best opportunities are the ones we build with our own resources and on our own timeline. Growing slowly and steadily is better than growing fast and risking losing everything." Arthur smiled. "Perfect. So let's grow our way." 6 months later, Metropolitan Construction Group had expanded its operations and hired 15 new employees. Tyler was supervising the construction of a housing complex when he received a call that would change everything. "Tyler," it was Arthur's voice, but it sounded different. "You need to come to the office, now." Tyler arrived at the office and found Arthur sitting with several documents spread on the table. There was also a man in a suit he didn't know. "Tyler, this is Dr. Mark Henderson, my personal attorney. I need to talk to you about something very important." Tyler sat down, feeling an uncomfortable familiarity with tense situations. "Mr. Arthur, did something happen?" "Tyler, I'm 70 years old. My wife passed away 3 years ago. My children live abroad and have no interest in the company. It's time to think about succession." Tyler's heart raced. "Mr. Arthur, Tyler, I want to offer you the chance to buy the company. Not now, but over the next 2 years, with a payment plan that works for you." Tyler was speechless. "Dr. Henderson prepared a proposal," Arthur continued. "You would get 60% of the shares, Heather with 20%, and I would keep 20% as a consultant until I fully retire." Tyler looked at the documents, but the words seemed blurred. "Mr. Arthur, I don't even know if I have the ability to lead an entire company." "Tyler, you're already leading. Over the past few months, I've let you make most of the important decisions, and they've all been right." Dr. Henderson spoke up. "Tyler, you don't have to decide now. Take the documents, analyze them calmly, consult a lawyer if you want. There's no rush." That night, Tyler called Heather. "Heather, did you hear about Arthur's offer?" "I did, and I was just as shocked as you." "What do you think?" "I think he wouldn't make this offer if he didn't believe we're capable, but I also think it's a huge responsibility. 20% of the shares. Heather, that means you'd be my partner. And you'd be my partner. We have to think about whether we can work together at this level." Tyler reflected on that. "Heather, you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. If there's anyone I would trust to be my partner, it's you." Tyler, we both learned the hard way that trust is something you build every day. If we decide to accept this offer, we'll have to commit to always being honest with each other. I think we've already proven we know how to do that. After 2 weeks of analysis and discussions, Tyler and Heather scheduled a meeting with Arthur to give their answer. "Mr. Arthur," Tyler began, "we accept your offer, but with a few conditions." Arthur raised his eyebrows. "What conditions?" "First, we want to set up an emergency fund for employees going through personal hardships. No one will be vulnerable to blackmail because of financial problems anymore." "Agreed." "Second," Heather continued, "we want to implement a full transparency program. All employees will know exactly how the company is doing financially." "Also agreed." "And third," Tyler said, "we want you to continue as our mentor for the next 5 years, not just 2. Arthur smiled. "That last condition I accept with great pleasure." The transition process lasted a year. During that time, Tyler learned aspects of business management he had never imagined: cash flow, strategic planning, people management, client relationships. But what impressed him the most was discovering how willing the employees were to go the extra mile when they knew their opinions were valued and that no secrets were being kept about the company's future. Stephen from accounting had become one of the most respected employees after overcoming his gambling addiction. He created a financial control system so efficient that other companies started asking for consulting. Monica had returned from Chicago as a human resources manager, bringing innovative ideas for recruiting and retaining talent. Martha Miller's son, the engineer, had been promoted to project coordinator and was developing more sustainable construction techniques. On the day he officially took over as CEO of the company, Tyler made a speech to all employees. "Everyone, exactly 2 years ago, I arrived here as a young man who thought he knew everything about the world. I found out I knew nothing." Laughter spread through the audience. "I learned that a company isn't made of numbers in spreadsheets or contracts in drawers. It's made of people who trust each other and work together toward common goals." He saw heads nodding. "I learned that leadership isn't about giving orders or making decisions alone. It's about creating an environment where the best ideas can flourish, no matter who came up with them." Heather, who was standing next to him, smiled. "And I learned that integrity isn't just about not stealing or not lying. It's about having the courage to do the right thing, even when it might cost you." The applause was long and warm. After the event, Tyler and Heather met in the office they now shared. "Tyler," said Heather, "do you realize what we've accomplished?" "What do you mean?" "We turned a company that was being destroyed from the inside out into a place where people want to work, where families can trust that their jobs are secure, where honesty is not punished but rewarded." Tyler looked out the window and saw the workers leaving at the end of the day. Entire families who depended on that company for their basic needs, dreams, and aspirations. "Heather, sometimes I still can't believe all this happened. Tyler, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure." "Have you ever regretted confronting Julian that day?" Tyler thought about the question. "Never, not for a second." "And you? Did you regret telling me the truth?" "No, not at all. But you know what I'm most proud of in this whole story?" "What?" "It wasn't just that we saved the company, it's that we proved ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they decide to do the right thing." 3 years later, Metropolitan Construction Group had become one of the most respected companies in the industry in the state. Tyler had married a teacher named Ashley, and they were expecting their first child. Heather had completed a graduate degree in business administration, and her daughter Anna Grace had graduated from law school with honors. Anna Grace had chosen to specialize in corporate law and wanted to work at her mother's company. Arthur Harrison, at 73, had finally fully retired, but he still visited the office every week to have coffee and talk about the old days. On one of these visits, he called Tyler aside for a private conversation. "Tyler, I want you to know that deciding to offer you the company was the best choice I made in my entire professional career. Mr. Arthur, I owe everything to you. No, my boy, you earned it all with your character and dedication. I just recognized what was already there. Mr. Arthur, can I tell you something?" "Of course." Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't had the courage that day. How many families would have lost their jobs? How much suffering could have been caused? Arthur put his hand on Tyler's shoulder. But you had courage, and that made all the difference. Not just for this company, but for every person whose life was touched by your decision. Mr. Arthur, there's something I've never asked you, but I've always wanted to know. What is it? Did you suspect Julian before I talked to you? Arthur was silent for a moment. Tyler, in the months before you told me the truth, I was having disturbing dreams. I'd wake up with a feeling that something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. My experience told me the numbers didn't add up, but my trust in Julian was so great that I ignored my instincts. Do you regret trusting him? No, I regret stopping trusting my instincts. Age shouldn't be an excuse to stop questioning and investigating. Tyler absorbed those words. So you think experience can sometimes get in our way? I think experience is only valuable when combined with an open mind and a willingness to learn new things. The moment we stop questioning, we stop growing. That night, Tyler was having dinner with Ashley when she made a comment that made him reflect. Tyler, have you ever stopped to think about how your life has completely changed in just a few years? What do you mean? 3 years ago, you were a junior executive worried only about your own career. Today, you own a company and are responsible for supporting 70 families. Tyler looked at Ashley's belly where their child was growing. Ashley, sometimes I'm afraid I won't be able to keep all this going. Why? Because I know so many people depend on the decisions I make. If I make a serious mistake, I won't just hurt myself. Ashley held his hand. Tyler, do you think Arthur was never scared when he started the company? He probably was. And do you think Heather wasn't scared when she decided to tell you about Julian? Of course she was. So why do you think fear is a sign that you're not ready? Maybe it's a sign that you understand the responsibility you have. Tyler smiled. You always know what to say to calm me down. That's what wives are for, Ashley laughed. To remind their husbands that they're more capable than they think. The following month, Tyler received an unexpected call. It was a journalist from a business magazine who wanted to do a story on the transformation of Metropolitan Construction Group. Mr. Tyler, we heard about how you discovered and dealt with the internal fraud. We'd like to tell that story as an example of how integrity can be a competitive advantage. Tyler hesitated. Sir, I'm not sure it's a good idea to expose our company like that. Why not? Tyler thought about the question. Because we don't want our story to be seen as a marketing stunt. What we did was simply the right thing to do. But that's exactly why we want to tell it. Because in a world where corporate scandals are common, you proved it's possible to build a company based on transparency and integrity. Tyler talked to Heather about the proposal. Heather, what do you think about doing this interview? I think it could be positive, but we need to make it clear we're not heroes. We're ordinary people who made the right decisions when it mattered. And aren't you afraid they'll expose your past? Tyler, my past made me who I am today. If someone wants to judge me for that, that's their problem, not mine. The article was published 3 months later with the title, How 2 Ordinary People Saved a Company and Transformed Lives. The piece highlighted not only the discovery of the fraud, but how the company had grown and become a model of transparent management. The response was bigger than Tyler expected. Several companies reached out asking for consulting on how to implement transparency systems. Universities wanted to study the case to use in business ethics classes. But what impacted Tyler the most was a letter he received from a young executive in another city. Mr. Tyler, I read your story in the magazine and wanted to thank you. I'm going through a similar situation at the company where I work. My boss is asking me to falsify some reports to get a bank loan. I was thinking about just obeying and pretending I didn't know it was wrong. But after reading about your experience, I understood that sometimes we need to have the courage to protect not only our own integrity, but other people's as well. I'm going to report what's happening. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to do the right thing and still succeed. Tyler showed the letter to Heather. Heather, do you think our story can really inspire other people? Tyler, don't you see? We didn't just save our company. We saved people's trust that it's possible to be honest and still thrive. Tyler put the letter in a special folder. Over the following years, he received dozens of similar letters from people who had found the courage to do the right thing after learning about his story. 5 years after the day Heather stopped him from going into the meeting with falsified reports, Tyler was celebrating the birth of his second child when he received an unexpected visit. It was Julian Vance. Tyler barely recognized him. The man was thinner with gray hair, but there was something different in his eyes, a calmness he had never seen before. "Tyler, I know I have no right to be here, but I need to tell you something." "Julian, I don't know if—" "Please, just 5 minutes." Tyler agreed, more out of curiosity than a desire to talk. "Tyler, over the past 5 years I've lost everything. Apartment, car, friends, reputation. No one wanted to hire me. I had to take basic jobs just to get by." Tyler listened in silence. "But you know what I discovered? Losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me." "What do you mean?" "Because it forced me to look at who I really was. And I didn't like what I saw. A man who had spent years manipulating and hurting other people to get what he wanted." Julian paused. "Tyler, now I work as an accountant at a small family business. I earn a third of what I used to. I live in a small apartment. I don't have a car. But I sleep in peace every night." Tyler didn't know what to say. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that destroying my life was the gift you gave me. It forced me to rebuild everything based on the person I should have been from the start." Julian stood up to leave. "Tyler, you saved much more than a company that day. You saved my soul." After Julian left, Tyler thought about the conversation. He called Heather. "Heather, Julian was here." "Julian, what did he want?" Tyler told her about the conversation. "Heather, do you think people can really change?" "Tyler, I changed. You changed. Why couldn't Julian change?" "That's true. You know what I think is the most beautiful part of all this?" Heather continued. "Even when we do the right thing to protect others, we end up protecting those who are doing the wrong thing too. Julian needed to be stopped from continuing to destroy lives, including his own." Tyler reflected on that. "Heather, sometimes I think our story isn't about uncovering fraud. It's about discovering that doing the right thing always has positive consequences, even when we can't see them right away." On the 10th anniversary of the company's transformation, Tyler organized a party for all employees, former employees, and their families. Arthur, now 80 years old, was the guest of honor. "Folks," Tyler said in his speech, 10 years ago this company was almost destroyed by a person who chose to put his own interests above everything else. Today we are one of the most respected companies in the state because we chose to do the opposite, put our community above our personal interests." Applause echoed through the hall. "But what makes me most proud isn't the awards we've won or the profits we've made. It's knowing that no family here has to worry about blackmail, manipulation, or uncertainty about the future of their jobs." Tyler looked at Heather, who was smiling with tears in her eyes. "And I want to take this opportunity to thank the person who made all this possible, Heather Miller, the woman who had the courage to risk everything to protect people she barely knew." The audience rose to a standing ovation for Heather. When the applause died down, Heather approached the microphone. "Folks, Tyler is being too generous with me. The truth is that we all took part in this transformation. Each of you chose to trust one another, chose to work together, chose to be part of something bigger than ourselves." She looked at her daughter Anna Grace, who now worked as a lawyer for the company. 10 years ago, I was ashamed of my past and afraid of my future. Today I am proud of who I've become and confident that together we can build a better future for everyone." After the party, Tyler and Heather sat in the office, reminiscing about the journey they had taken. "Tyler, have you ever stopped to think about how different our lives could have been if you had gone into that meeting with the false reports?" "I think about it sometimes. The company would probably have been sold, dozens of people would have lost their jobs, and I would have been fired as the scapegoat. And I would probably still be being blackmailed by Julian." Tyler nodded. "Heather, there's something I've never asked you, but I've always wanted to know." "What?" "At the moment you decided to tell me the truth, were you sure I would do the right thing?" Heather thought about the question. No. I hoped you would, but I wasn't sure. You could have told Julian. You could have decided it was safer to stay quiet. You could have left the company to avoid getting involved. So, why did you take the risk? Because I realized that sometimes the only way to find out what we're capable of is to put ourselves in situations where we have no choice but to be brave. Tyler smiled. And you discovered you were braver than you thought. We both discovered that. They sat in silence for a few minutes, contemplating the view from the window. The company had grown so much that it now occupied an entire building. Tyler, Heather said finally, do you think our story will inspire the next generations of employees? I hope so. But more than that, I hope it inspires other people in other companies to have the courage to do the right thing. Tyler, can I tell you a secret? Sure. Sometimes I get calls from people who have read our story and are going through similar situations. They ask for advice on how to report fraud or how to deal with blackmail. Tyler looked surprised. Really? And what do you tell them? I tell them there's no magic formula. Every situation is unique. But the most important thing is to remember that doing the right thing is rarely easy, but it's always worth it. And do they listen? Some do, some don't, but at least they know it's possible. Tyler got up and walked to the wall where there was a photo of the company's original team, taken a few months after Julian left. Heather, do you see this photo? I see it. Look at people's faces. They all seem relieved, hopeful. That's true. Sometimes I forget what it was like working here before. The tension, the mistrust, the fear that anything we said could be used against us. Heather joined him in front of the photo. Tyler, do you know what the biggest change I see in this company is? What? People smile. They smile when they arrive in the morning, smile when they talk to co-workers, smile when they talk about work with their families. Tyler watched the movement in the company through the window. It was true. There was a lightness in the air that wasn't there before. Heather, there's something else I never told you. What? That morning when you pulled me into the office and told me about the false reports, I almost didn't believe you. Not because I doubted you, but because I couldn't accept that someone I respected so much could be using me. And how do you feel about it today? Grateful, because it taught me that true trust isn't about never being betrayed. It's about knowing how to recognize who we can really trust. And did you find out who you can trust? Tyler looked at her. I found out I can trust people who risk something to protect others. And you, Heather? Did you find out who you can trust? I found out I can trust people who do the right thing even when it might cost them dearly. Just then, Anna Grace walked into the office. Mom, Tyler, sorry to interrupt, but an interesting piece of mail arrived. She handed an official envelope to Tyler. It's from the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. You've been nominated for the Excellence in Business Management Award. Tyler and Heather looked at each other in surprise. Nominated by whom? Heather asked. Anna Grace smiled. By your own employees. They wrote a collective letter telling the story of the company's transformation. Tyler read the letter out loud. We, the employees of Metropolitan Construction Group, would like to nominate our leaders Tyler Bennett and Heather Miller for the Excellence in Business Management Award. Not for the profits the company has made, but for the way they transformed a work environment based on fear and mistrust into a community based on respect and transparency. They proved that it's possible to build a thriving company without compromising ethical values. More importantly, they taught us that we all have a responsibility to protect our work community when we see something wrong happening. When Tyler finished reading, there were tears in his eyes. Heather, do you realize what this means? It means we managed to create something bigger than ourselves. We created a culture. Anna Grace added, Mum, Tyler, did you know the letter was Stephen's idea from accounting? Tyler was moved. Stephen, the man who had been blackmailed by Julian because of his gambling problems, was now leading initiatives to recognize ethical leadership. Anna Grace, how did he justify the idea? He said you saved not just jobs but dignity, that before he was ashamed to work here because he knew there was corruption, and now he's proud to say where he works. Heather sat down, clearly emotional. Tyler, sometimes I still can't believe everything that happened. Me neither. But you know what impresses me most? What? That it all started with a simple choice. You chose to tell me the truth. I chose to believe you. And those simple choices created a chain reaction that changed dozens of lives. 3 months later, Tyler and Heather were on stage receiving the Excellence in Business Management Award. In the audience were all the company's employees, Arthur Harrison, their families, and even Julian Vance, who had asked for permission to attend. In his acceptance speech, Tyler said, "This award is not ours. It's for anyone who has ever had to choose between doing what's easy and doing what's right, and chose to do what's right. It's for anyone who has ever risked something to protect other people. It's for anyone who believes we can build a better world, one company at a time, one decision at a time." Heather added, 10 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be standing here today, I wouldn't have believed it, because 10 years ago, I was someone who avoided conflict, who was afraid to confront difficult situations. This award represents the transformation of 2 people who discovered they had more courage than they ever imagined. After the ceremony, Julian approached them. "Tyler, Heather, I wanted to congratulate you both, and I want you to know that being here today, seeing your success, has been more rewarding than any award I ever received in my former life." Tyler extended his hand to Julian. "Julian, thank you for being here. It means a lot to us." "Tyler, can I ask you a favor?" "Of course. If you ever need someone to tell this story to other business owners, to show that change is possible, I'd volunteer to help. I think sometimes people need to hear both from the one who does the right thing and from the one who had to learn to do the right thing." Heather smiled. "Julian, I think that would be a very valuable contribution." 6 months later, Tyler, Heather, and Julian were together at a business conference telling their full story. Julian spoke about how greed and manipulation had nearly destroyed his life, and how being confronted forced him to rebuild himself as a person. Tyler spoke about how learning to trust his own moral judgment had been more important to his success than any technical skill. Heather spoke about how turning difficult experiences into strength to protect others had been the key to her personal and professional fulfillment. The audience response was extraordinary. Dozens of business owners came up afterward to say they'd been inspired to implement changes in their own companies. A young executive approached Tyler. "Mr. Tyler, I work at a company where my boss is asking me to withhold important information from shareholders. After hearing your story, I understand I have a choice to make." "And what's your choice going to be?" Tyler asked. "I'm going to do the right thing, even if it's hard." Tyler smiled and handed his card to the young man. "If you need support or guidance, call me. Sometimes it's easier to do the right thing when we know we're not alone." Walking back to the hotel after the conference, Heather remarked, "Tyler, do you realize our story has taken on a life of its own? Now it belongs to everyone who's been inspired by it to make their own hard choices." "That's true. And you know what I think is the most beautiful part?" "What?" "That each person who chooses to do the right thing after hearing our story is creating their own story. And maybe one day they'll inspire others too." Heather nodded. "It's like a chain of integrity. Once we start making the right choices, it spreads to other people. Heather, there's something I've never told you, but I think it's important you know." "What?" "That day when you stopped me from going into that meeting, you saved much more than my career or the company. You taught me that I was capable of being brave, and that changed not just my professional life, but who I am as a person, as a husband, as a father." Heather stopped walking and looked him in the eyes. "Tyler, do you want to know a secret?" "Sure." "The moment I decided to tell you the truth about Julian, for the first time in my life, I felt truly strong. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I chose to do the right thing despite the fear. And that feeling has never left me." Tyler smiled. "So we both learned the same lesson. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite the fear." "Exactly." They reached the hotel and said goodbye, each heading to their own room. Tyler called Ashley to tell her about the conference. "Ashley, today was one of the most rewarding days of my life." "Why?" "Because I realized that our story can really make a difference in other people's lives, not just inspire, but give practical tools to handle difficult situations." "Tyler, do you think everything you went through was worth it?" Tyler thought about the question as he looked out the hotel window at the illuminated city. Ashley, if all that hadn't happened, I would still be a naive young man who blindly trusted any authority figure. Heather would still be a person ruled by fears from the past. Julian would still be someone destroying lives to get what he wanted, and dozens of families would have lost their jobs. And now? Now we're people who know we can trust our own moral judgment. Julian is someone building a life based on honesty, and our company has become a place where people want to work because they know they're respected and protected, so it was worth it, completely. The next day, Tyler woke up to a message from Anna Grace. She was sending a newspaper article with the headline, "Young Entrepreneur Reports Fraud After Being Inspired by Story of Corporate Integrity." Tyler immediately called Heather. "Heather, did you see the article Anna Grace sent?" "I did. It's about the young man who talked to us yesterday." "Yes, he actually filed the report, and they uncovered a tax evasion scheme that could have harmed hundreds of investors." Heather was silent for a moment. "Tyler, do you realize what this means? That our story saved not just our company, but potentially hundreds of other people?" "Exactly. And it makes me wonder, how many other similar situations are out there, waiting for someone to have the courage to do the right thing?" Tyler reflected on that. "Heather, I think our responsibility didn't end when we saved our company. I think it just began." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we should create some kind of program to help people who are in situations like ours. A place where they can ask for guidance, support, maybe even legal protection." "Tyler, that's an amazing idea. We could use our experience to help other people find the courage to report fraud and corruption." "Exactly. And we could work with Julian. He has a unique perspective on how the mind of someone who commits these crimes works. He could help us identify warning signs." 3 months later, they launched the Integrity Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting people who uncover fraud or corruption in their workplaces. The foundation offered free legal consulting, psychological support, and a mentoring program where people who had been through similar situations helped others facing ethical dilemmas. Julian became one of the foundation's main speakers, sharing his experience on how corruption develops and how it can be identified early. In its first year of operation, the foundation helped 43 people report irregularities in their companies. This led to the recovery of millions of dollars in fraud and the protection of thousands of jobs. Tyler was in his office reviewing the foundation's annual reports when Heather walked in with a smile on her face. "Tyler, I just got an amazing call." "What is it?" "It was from a university professor in New York. She wants to include our story in the university's business ethics curriculum." "Really?" "Yes, and more. She wants to create an internship program where students work at the Integrity Foundation for a semester to learn hands-on about corporate integrity." Tyler stood up, excited. "Heather, do you realize what this means? We'll be shaping a new generation of professionals who understand from an early age the importance of doing the right thing, and who have practical tools to deal with difficult situations." "Heather, sometimes I still can't believe everything we've built since that moment when you stopped me from going into the meeting. Tyler, can I tell you something?" "Sure." "Sometimes I dream about that day, but it's not a nightmare, it's a good dream, because it was the day we both discovered who we really were." Tyler smiled. "And who are we, Heather?" "We're people who believe it's always possible to do the right thing, and that when we do, it inspires others to do the same." That weekend, Tyler was at home playing with his children when the oldest, now 5 years old, asked a question that surprised him. "Daddy, why do you and Aunt Heather work so much?" Tyler thought about how to explain it in a way a child could understand. "Son, do you know the difference between doing something because it's easy and doing something because it's right?" The boy shook his head. "Sometimes when we grow up, we discover that people are doing wrong things that can hurt others, and we have to choose. Do we pretend we didn't see, or do we try to help? And you choose to help?" "Yes. And when we help one person, they become stronger to help others, and so the world becomes a little better." The boy was thoughtful for a moment. "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to help people too." Tyler hugged his son. "And I'm sure you will help, because you're learning from a young age that helping others is one of the most important things we can do." That night, Tyler told the conversation to Ashley. "Ashley, I think our story isn't just about saving a company or fighting corruption. It's about creating a legacy of integrity for the next generations." "What do you mean?" "Our children are growing up seeing that it's possible to be successful by doing the right thing. The company's employees are teaching this to their families. The students who intern at the Integrity Foundation are taking these values into their careers." Ashley smiled. "Tyler, do you remember how it was before all this? You were always worried about what other people thought of you, always trying to please everyone." "I remember, and now?" "Now you worry about doing the right thing, regardless of what others think. And that has made you not only a better businessman, but a better father, a better husband, a better person." Tyler reflected on his wife's words. "Ashley, I think I've discovered what true success is." "What is it?" "It's not having money or power or recognition. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror every day and know that your choices are making the world a little better." On the 15th anniversary of the company's transformation, Tyler organized a special meeting with all employees, former employees and their families. Arthur Harrison, now 85 but still lucid and engaged, was once again the guest of honor. "Everyone," Tyler began, 15 years ago, our company was nearly destroyed. Today, we are not only one of the most prosperous companies in the state, but we have also created the Integrity Foundation, which has already helped more than 200 people do the right thing in difficult situations." The applause was warm. "But what makes me most proud is not the numbers or the awards. It's looking at you and seeing people who know they can trust each other. It's knowing that our children are growing up in an environment where integrity is not just a value on paper, but something we live every day." Tyler looked at Heather, who was emotional. 15 years ago, Heather Miller made the bravest decision of her life. She risked everything to protect people she barely knew, and that decision created a wave of transformation that continues to spread to this day. The audience stood up for a standing ovation for Heather. "But today, I want to do something different," Tyler continued. "I want to invite Julian Vance to speak with us." A surprised murmur went through the audience. Julian stood up, visibly nervous. "Everyone, I know it might seem strange for me to be here. 15 years ago, I nearly destroyed this company and harmed all of you." His voice was choked. "But I want you to know that seeing what you have built, seeing how you turned pain into strength, seeing how you created something that is helping people across the country, that taught me that it is never too late to change." Julian looked directly at Tyler and Heather. "Tyler, Heather, you gave me the greatest gift anyone can give. You forced me to become a better person. And now I spend my days trying to help other people not make the mistakes I made." The applause was hesitant at first, but grew until it became a genuine ovation. After the event, Tyler, Heather, and Julian gathered in the office. "Julian," said Tyler, "thank you for speaking today. I know it couldn't have been easy." "Actually, it was liberating," Julian replied. "For years I carried shame for what I did, but today I realized that shame is only useful if it motivates us to do better in the future." "Julian," said Heather, "there's something I've always wanted to ask you." "What?" "Do you regret meeting me, marrying me? If we hadn't met, maybe you would never have developed those manipulative tendencies." Julian thought about the question for a long moment. "Heather, I regret hurting you. I regret using your trust against you. But I do not regret meeting you, because meeting you taught me what genuine integrity is. And even though it took me years to learn the lesson, without you, I would never have learned it." Heather was emotional. "Julian, thank you for saying that. I needed to hear it." Tyler watched that conversation and realized something profound. All of them had been transformed by that experience. Not only he and Heather, but also Julian, and through them, hundreds of other people. "Everyone," said Tyler, "I think our story proves something important." "What?" asked Heather and Julian together. "It proves that there are no permanent villains or permanent heroes. There are only people making choices, and it is always possible to make a better choice next time. Julian nodded. Tyler, that is what gives me the most hope, because it means that other people who are making wrong choices now can also change. And it means, added Heather, that we also need to keep making right choices every day. Integrity is not something we achieve once and then never have to worry about again. Tyler smiled. So our story didn't end 15 years ago when we discovered the fraud. Our story continues every day, with every choice we make, with every person we help, with every example we set. 5 years later, on the 20th anniversary of the company's transformation, Tyler was preparing to retire and hand over the company to Anna Grace, who had become an exceptional executive. In his last meeting as CEO, he said, "Everyone, when I took over this company, I thought my responsibility was to generate profits and maintain jobs. I discovered that actually my responsibility was to create an environment where good people could do their best work and where people who make mistakes could learn and redeem themselves." He looked at Anna Grace, who was sitting in the front row. "Anna Grace, you're taking over a company that isn't just financially successful. It has a soul, a culture built on trust, transparency, and mutual care." "Uncle Tyler," Anna Grace stood up, "I promise to keep building on the legacy you created, and I promise never to forget that a company is first and foremost a community of people who depend on each other." Heather, now 57 years old and still the administrative director, stepped up to the microphone. "Everyone, 20 years ago I was a woman haunted by her past and terrified of the future. Today I'm a woman who knows that the past gave me strength and that the future is full of possibilities." She looked at Tyler. "Tyler, thank you for believing in me when I didn't yet believe in myself. Thank you for showing me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to do the right thing despite the fear." After the ceremony, Tyler and Heather walked through the company one last time as CEO and director. "Tyler," said Heather, "are you satisfied with what we built?" Tyler looked around, seeing employees working with smiles on their faces, seeing the photos on the wall that documented 2 decades of growth and transformation. "Heather, I'm more than satisfied. I'm grateful." "Grateful for what?" "Grateful because that terrible day when we discovered the fraud turned into the most transformative experience of our lives. Grateful because we learned that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it." Heather smiled. "And what will you do in retirement?" "I'll keep working at the Integrity Foundation. There are still many people out there who need support to make tough choices. And you?" "I'll also stay at the Integrity Foundation, and I want to write a book telling our complete story, so that other people know it's always possible to start over, always possible to do better." Tyler nodded. "Heather, there's something I want to tell you before we leave here for the last time as leaders of this company." "What?" "Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. Thank you for believing I would do the right thing. Thank you for teaching me that integrity isn't a luxury but a necessity." Heather hugged him. "Tyler, thank you for proving to me that there are still good people in this world. People who do the right thing even when it's hard." They left the company together, knowing they had created something that would last far beyond their own lives. A culture of integrity, a community based on trust, and a legacy of courage that would inspire future generations. End of the story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story? Do you believe Tyler and Heather made the right decisions? Would you have the courage to do the same in their place? Leave your opinion in the comments with honest words. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Thank you so much for your company.